Okay, so picture this. You're at this Labor Day weekend party. It goes on and on for days. There's music and laughter. You're with your friends. And then poof, one of them just vanishes.
Yeah.
Days later, his body turns up on the side of a highway miles away. He's naked. He's got mismatched shoes. And the story the police are giving just doesn't really add up at all.
Right.
So that's what we're diving into today, the mysterious death of this 19-year-old kid, Noah Presgrove, out in rural Oklahoma.
It's a case that has really captured a lot of attention online. There's tons of conflicting stories. There's unanswered questions. Yeah. Obviously, a family that wants answers. They're looking for the truth, and we're gonna unpack all of that.
Yeah.
All the events, the evidence, and the theories, and see if we can make any sense of this whole tragedy.
So let's go back to the beginning. Let's start with this party. This party was at Avery Tome's house, and from what I understand, it went on for days and days with people coming and going. I mean, dozens of people there.
Yeah, it sounds like a scene straight out of, one of those classic coming-of-age movies. There's music, bonfires, late-night talks, but then things took a really dark turn.
Yeah, and the thing that I thought was really interesting is, before his disappearance, this party was all over social media.
Right.
There's photos, videos popping up everywhere, and then at some point, it all just stops.
Yeah, just radio silence, right?
It's like a digital curtain fell over the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then there were a bunch of different incidents at this party that just raise all these red flags.
Yeah.
Like Noah got into it with his best friend, Jack Newton. There was a fight over Jack's girlfriend.
Uh-huh.
Then there was this whole thing with a guy named Mikey. They were fighting over a missing phone. There's even this weird thing where they were drawing on Noah with markers.
With markers.
And then, of course, you got the side-by-side accident.
Right. And that's actually super important because there are so many different stories about how bad that accident really was.
Yeah.
Some are saying it was a fender bender, and other people saying it was way worse, like Noah was thrown from the vehicle. And that really throws a wrench in the whole thing because it makes you question the official story.
All right, so you've got this party with all these different stories going around. You've got social media going dark. And then in the early morning hours of September 4th, they find Noah's body.
Yeah, and the scene is just awful. He's naked, he's wearing 2 different shoes, he's got road rash and all these other injuries.
And the truck driver who found him, this guy Tyler Hardy, he's adamant that nobody touched the body before the police got there.
Yeah, but then there's this whole debate about these white shorts that were found near Noah's body.
Right.
Some people say that they were folded neatly, which doesn't really make sense if they were just thrown off during a hit and run.
Yeah, that's just one of the many things that just don't add up in this case. And then months later, the autopsy report comes out, and it completely changes the story.
Oh, yeah.
It's a total game changer.
For sure.
It turns out Noah had 10 broken ribs, a fractured skull, a broken neck, internal bleeding. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Wow.
And Dr. Stuart Fisher, this doctor who reviewed the report, he said, these injuries look more like a beating than a car accident.
Yeah, Dr. Fisher's assessment and the fact that there aren't any serious injuries to his legs. I mean, if Noah was hit by a car going fast, you'd expect to see more damage there, right?
Right.
So the types of injuries and where they are on his body, it all points to something else.
And then you've got the fact that almost everyone at that party wiped their phones, deleted their social media posts. I mean, it just looks really suspicious.
Yeah, it definitely raises a red flag. Like, what are they trying to hide?
Right. So let's talk about some of the people involved, starting with Jack Newton, Noah's best friend. He's told different stories about that night. First, he said he went to bed early, but then he admitted that he actually saw Noah's body at the scene.
Huh.
And he's even saying that he passed a lie detector test.
Well, a lie detector test, it measures things like your heart rate, how much you're sweating while they're asking you questions.
Right.
But they're not perfect by any means, and people argue all the time whether they should be used in court.
Yeah.
So Jack passing a lie detector test, it might make some people think he's telling the truth, but it doesn't necessarily mean he is.
And then there's Jack's dad, Caleb Newton.
Hmm.
He showed up at the scene right after they found Noah's body, and some people even say they saw him messing with evidence like picking up Noah's teeth off the road.
Oh, wow.
Now, Caleb denies all that, but it's just another thing that makes you go,
Right, why was he even there?
Exactly. And then we have the Texas boys, this group of guys from across the border. Some people think maybe they ran into Noah after he left the party and things got out of hand.
The Texas boys, they're kind of a wild card in all of this. Were they involved, or are they just a convenient scapegoat for someone else?
Right. And, of course, we have to talk about Avery Combs, the girl who hosted the party.
Right.
Now, she hasn't said anything publicly about what happened, but her mom, Stevie Howard, she's been defending her daughter, saying that they didn't deep clean the house, they just tidied up. But the fact remains, the party was at her house.
Yeah.
It happened on her watch.
Avery's role is interesting. Even if she wasn't directly involved, she might know something about what happened that night, what was going on at the party, how Noah was interacting with people, and the fact that she's not saying anything, it just makes the whole thing even more mysterious.
And through all of this, you've got Noah's family just desperate for answers. They want justice. They've raised money to hire a private investigator. They're offering a reward for information because they believe someone at that party knows something.
Yeah, you can just feel their pain and frustration. They've hit a brick wall. They're getting all these different stories. The investigation seems to have stalled, and it's just got to be so hard for them.
It really is. This case is like a puzzle with half the pieces missing. There's so much we still don't know, but we'll keep digging into the death of Noah Presgrove right after the break. We've been talking about these different stories and all the people involved, but let's look at some of the actual evidence, starting with Noah's phones. He actually had 2 phones with him at the party, and the records show that they pinged in a bunch of different locations in the hours before he died, including back at the party house after his body was found on the highway.
Right, the phone records are super important because they can help piece together a timeline of what happened.
Right.
And imagine a map with dots showing where the phones were at certain times. If you connect those dots, you can maybe figure out where Noah went and who he was with.
So these phone pings back at the party house after they found his body, what does that even mean?
Well, there are a couple possibilities. Some people think it means someone took his body back to the house after killing him somewhere else, maybe to clean up or get rid of evidence. But others say maybe the phones were just left in the side-by-side. Remember, they were using it to look for Noah?
Right.
So maybe that's why they pinged in those locations, even though his body wasn't there.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but you're missing half the pieces. And then there's that creepy Snapchat photo that one of the girls at the party posted with the caption, "Well, Noah's missing."
Yeah, that one's really unsettling, especially because everyone went silent on social media after that.
Exactly. It's like on the surface, it seems like she's just worried, but the timing is just off. And then the silence, it makes you wonder, was she trying to get help, or was it more like trying to create an alibi to show that Noah was already missing before anyone officially found him?
It's hard to say without knowing more about her and what she was thinking.
So we've got conflicting stories. We've got suspicious stuff happening online. We've got an autopsy report that doesn't match up with what the police initially said. What are some of the main theories about what actually happened to Noah?
Well, the biggest theory, the one that a lot of people online and Noah's family believe, is that he was killed at the party and then someone moved his body to make it look like a hit and run.
Right.
The injuries, the lack of damage to his legs, and all the deleted phone data, it all kind of points in that direction.
And a lot of people are pointing fingers at Jack Newton, saying maybe the fight over his girlfriend Carter got out of control and led to Noah's death.
Yeah.
Some even think Jack's dad Caleb helped cover it up.
Jack and Caleb are definitely under suspicion. Their stories keep changing. They were both at the scene, and then there are all those rumors about their family being wealthy and connected.
Oh, right.
But remember, just because someone's a suspect doesn't mean they're guilty. We need actual evidence to connect them to Noah's death.
And then there's the theory about the Texas boys.
Right.
What if they ran into Noah after he left the party and things got violent?
The Texas boys theory is interesting because it adds a whole other layer of randomness to everything.
Right.
Were they really the ones responsible, or are they just a distraction from what really happened?
It's all so frustrating, especially for Noah's family. They're stuck with more questions than answers, a huge loss, and this feeling that they're not getting the whole truth from anyone.
Yeah, their pain is totally understandable. They're dealing with losing a child, and on top of that, they don't even know what happened to him, and they're not getting closure. It's heartbreaking, but it's also inspiring to see them fighting so hard for the truth.
It really is. It's a terrible situation, and it makes you think about how this whole investigation was handled. After the break, we're going to look into how the police have dealt with this case, what evidence they've gathered, and what challenges they're facing in trying to figure out the truth. We've talked a lot about the things that don't add up, the different stories people are telling, and the theories about what happened to Noah, but let's talk about the actual investigation. From what we've seen, it looks like the police made up their minds pretty quickly that this was just a hit and run. But as more information's come out, especially the autopsy report, that conclusion seems less and less likely.
Yeah, you're right. It seems like the initial investigation wasn't very thorough. Maybe they rushed to judgment or something. And that raises some serious questions about whether they missed or messed up important evidence. Like, we know they never even searched the party house.
Right.
Which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because there's a good chance that something happened there.
And then there's all this stuff online about Jack Newton and his dad Caleb maybe having connections to the police.
Right.
Which makes people wonder if those relationships affected the investigation.
Yeah, that's a really serious concern if there is any interference or bias in the investigation, because that just undermines the whole system and makes it harder to find the truth. Even if those accusations aren't proven, it shows how important it is for the police to be transparent and accountable,
Yeah.
especially in cases like this that get so much attention and where there might be conflicts of interest.
So where do things stand now? We know the police have said they're not looking at Noah's death as a murder right now, but they're also saying the case isn't closed. It feels like we're just stuck waiting.
It is frustrating for everyone, especially Noah's family. The police seem to be acknowledging that there are problems with the case, and they're feeling the pressure to take another look at it, but they haven't said what they're actually doing about it. So the family and the whole community are left in limbo, not knowing if they'll ever get the truth.
And because of all this uncertainty, Noah's family has decided to take things into their own hands. They hired a private investigator and offered a reward for information. They're not giving up on finding answers.
It's amazing to see how determined they are. They're not going to just sit back and wait for the police to do something. It shows the power of everyday people taking action and how important it is to have independent investigations when you have doubts about the official ones.
This whole case really shows how social media can be both good and bad. On one hand, it gives us a window into what happened before Noah died. We have photos, videos, posts that tell us about the party, the people there, and what the mood was like. But on the other hand, social media is full of speculation, rumors, and just plain wrong information.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. It can spread the truth, but it can also spread lies. So it's super important for investigators, journalists, and everyone really to look at social media evidence carefully and think about biases, motivations, and the possibility that people are trying to manipulate things.
The death of Noah Presgrove is just a horrible tragedy made even worse by all the mystery and unanswered questions. It makes you question whether the initial investigation was done right, whether there were conflicts of interest, and how hard it is to find justice when there's so much noise coming from social media.
This case reminds us that the truth can be hard to find, especially when people have reasons to hide it. It shows how important it is to have thorough investigations, people looking at things from different angles, and to never stop fighting for justice even when it's not clear what happened.
We might never know for sure what happened to Noah Presgrove that Labor Day weekend. But one thing's for sure, his family deserves answers, and Noah deserves justice. If you have any information about this case, no matter how small it seems, please contact the police or the private investigator hired by Noah's family. Every little bit of information could help get us closer to the truth and give his loved ones some peace.
Our deep dive into Noah Presgrove's death leaves us with a question that's still unanswered. Will justice be served? Only time will tell. But the search for answers has to continue, driven by our commitment to the truth, holding people accountable, and honoring the memory of this young man whose life was cut short.
Thanks for joining us as we explored this difficult and heartbreaking case. We hope you'll keep thinking about it, share your thoughts, and consider all the questions that still haven't been answered. And be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more in-depth looks at fascinating and important topics.